This is the BSDFS Fantasy Football Podcast, brought to you by Scotty and Brian with the quick picks that'll make you the quick bucks. Let's get into it. Scotty, go ahead and start us off with some quarterback.
Alrighty. So the first quarterback I want to talk about this week, he's a little on the pricey side, but I think he'll definitely be worth it, is some Drew Brees going into Tennessee.
Killing me, man. You're killing me already.
He's sitting at 6,900. It does make him the third most expensive quarterback on the slate, but it is the second highest point total of the week at 50 points. It's going to be a close game with New Orleans favored by 2.5. But if you're looking at the Tennessee defense, they're actually fifth against the run in the DVOA rankings, but they're below average against the pass at 22nd. So it's definitely
has not been looking good either. So they're going to have to throw it.
Yeah. So this is definitely going to be a game where Brees is going to have to do a lot. It's going to be a high-scoring game. It's going to be a shootout. Mm-hmm. And Brees has been on fire recently, averaging 37 DraftKings points over the last two games. Yeah. So it's like I say again, it's a little pricey, but it's definitely going to be worth it. And you're definitely going to want some Drew Brees in your lineups this week.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. I also got the other side of that as well. Looked at some Ryan Tannehill, kind of for the same reason. The point total sitting at 50.5 points. You said 50. But yeah, sitting at 50.5. I think most likely Tennessee is going to be playing from behind, so they're going to have to air it out. Pair him up with some A.J. Brown, and he's sitting at like kind of a cheaper price range. He's also been playing really well the past 2 weeks. He's had 31.5 and 25.2 points. So I think he's a pretty good option as well, and definitely relevant. Again, just kind of for a lot of the same reasons, but I also feel like the game script is going to leave them playing from behind. And out of nowhere, Ryan Tannehill has been playing really well. So I like that game a lot as well. That's one of the ones I highlighted almost all through today.
Yeah, I think both sides of the ball are going to be good, but I think Brees draws the better matchup overall because New Orleans is top 10 both against the run and the pass. Mm-hmm. So I personally would rather pay the extra $300 and get more Brees over Tannehill.
Yeah,
but they're both really good.
Yeah, for sure. All right, you want to go on to your other quarterbacks?
Yeah, the other one I have, he's gonna be a tiny bit risky, but and he's burned me a couple times before, but I'm giving Dalton one more chance this season. Because if he doesn't have a good week this week, I don't know what to do with him.
Yeah, do what the Bengals did and just make him sit and bring him back.
Yeah, so he's sitting at 5,200, which is pretty darn cheap for a quarterback. And he's going against a Miami defense that is last against the pass in the DVOA rankings. Dalton's still near the top in terms of pass attempts per game. He's averaging just over 40 plus. It's going to be a pretty high-scoring game at 46.5. It's not necessarily near the top, but it's going to be above average.
It's definitely a lot better than like a 38-point or 40-point game.
Yeah, it's on the right side of 45. So he's definitely been kind of on the downturn. He's had a couple ugly games recently, especially last week with the 4 interceptions. So I think he's going to be under the radar for a lot of people. But he's sitting at a really good price point, and he can be paired with a lot of really cheap receivers. So he's going to be a quarterback that'll save you a lot of money in your lineups this week.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that, but I definitely agree with it being a pretty risky pick for the most part. But as far as, I think that people are going to start to think that we coordinate this because this is kind of ridiculous how we keep on doing this. I actually got the other side of that, and I was leaning on some Fitzpatrick. There's no defense. They're sitting in Miami. I think that he's going to ball out because he's trying to make sure that he ends up on the bench somewhere on another team next year. I mean, he loves to air out the ball. And I think it's just going to be, scoring back and forth. Again, like you said, it's not a huge point total, but at the same time, there's no defense. And Fitzpatrick is all about throwing that ball.
I feel like Fitzpatrick will end up being the higher owned of the two, which is kind of why I targeted Dalton.
Yeah, he definitely will. But I think it might be worth it. I mean, I think you're more likely to be able to hit your numbers with Fitzpatrick because he's shown in some garbage time instances he can go nuts. He's sitting at a pretty good price point, only sitting at $6K. So I definitely think he's a viable option, and I'm going to be looking at him.
I mean, you can't go wrong with either because it is going to be a close game with Miami favored by 1, which I'm guessing they're favored just because it is a home matchup for them.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's move on to running backs. So this guy, I did not really pay attention to him at all until recently, and he's just been going nuts. One of the guys on your team, Miles Sanders, he's been playing really well. He's been also playing a role as kind of a receiving back. He had 6 targets and 6 receptions, which means he's got some good hands going for him. And, I mean, he's going to rack up some of those extra points and getting those receptions. He had both a receiving and a running touchdown last week. He's sitting at a really good price at $6,400. And, I mean, you guys are really struggling as far as receivers go. So I think it's more likely that they're going to have a better running game right now.
Yeah, he's one of the few healthy options left on the roster at this point, but he is starting to get going. I think he's a second round.
He's going to be high owned, I'm pretty sure. But, I mean, if he puts up the production of 20-plus points, or like last week where he almost got 40, it's still viable even if it's high owned.
Yeah, and Dallas is pretty banged up on defense. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, a couple weeks ago that would have been a bit of a risky play, but they're getting Dallas at just the right time.
Mm-hmm.
So, I guess the first running back I want to talk about is some Marlon Mack going against Carolina. He's sitting at 6,200. I'm kind of picking on Carolina yet again. Yeah. Their rush defense is last in the DVOA rankings. They're allowing 140 rushing yards per game, which has them ranked at 30th in the league overall.
Mm-hmm.
Mack has had back-to-back pretty ugly games, but he's gone against 2 really good run defenses with New Orleans and Tampa Bay. So this will definitely be an opportunity for him to bounce back against a terrible Carolina run D.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a matchup with Indy favored by 7 with a 46.5 total. So
not to mention also putting out the 3rd string quarterback now on Carolina. So most likely not going to be in control of that game.
Yeah, so Indy should be able to take control of the game and really run the ball.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I could definitely see that. I mean, Marlon Mack seems kind of like a boom bust pick typically. Like he either gets you a ton of value or no value. So
yeah, I don't think a lot of people are going to be looking at him this week. He hasn't really been
radar.
Yeah.
One that I was looking at, he's a little bit pricey, but he's also heating up at the right time. It's also from the game we talked about earlier, the Bengals game. And I'm looking at Joe Mixon. Mixon, they're sitting at a pretty decent point total, like we mentioned earlier, 46.5. He's been playing kind of a receiving back. He's gotten 3 receptions or more since Dalton got back to the starting lineup. And he's been really playing well lately. Past 2 weeks, he went 30.6 and 21.6. So he's definitely putting up the numbers. And to get a starting running back for 6,600 is, a pretty good spot.
Yeah, both defenses are just terrible across the board. So I think running, passing, I mean, it's going to be kind of hard to predict who's going to go off, but somebody has to.
Yeah, exactly.
I guess the only other running back I want to talk about would be some Devontae Freeman going against Jacksonville.
I have a tough time getting on that bandwagon.
I mean, Jacksonville is like almost as bad as Carolina against the run. They're allowing 140 yards per game, and They're 30th in the DVOA rankings, so they're right there with Carolina in terms of just bad run D.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like Devontae Freeman always disappoints. Like, it's just almost like a guarantee. So I don't know. I mean, the matchup, I agree, but I have a tough time getting behind him.
I mean, I know he had an ugly game last week, but that was going against San Francisco, in San Francisco.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, Atlanta is favored by 7 in this matchup, so Jacksonville's going to be playing from behind. And it is a home game, which always helps the running game and the defense.
Especially Atlanta, yeah.
He's at a good price point at $6,000. He's not too expensive.
Yeah, I can see it. I probably wouldn't put him as a huge percentage, though, just because I just feel like a lot of times he kind of shits the bed a lot.
Well, I like him this week.
Gotcha. All right, well, let's move on to some wide receivers.
All right, so I'm going to go ahead and just continue on the Atlanta-Jacksonville game. I'm liking some Chark this week. He should be good to go for the Atlanta game. I know he's listed as questionable right now, but they're saying he's closer to probable.
Gotcha. Yeah, Chark is like definitely their go-to guy. I was looking at that game as well, and then I saw that Chark was questionable, so I kind of laid off of it. But I 100% agree if he's healthy.
Yeah, Atlanta's kind of below average against the pass at 25th, but they're not amazing against the run, but they are above average at 13th. So this will definitely be a game where Minshew's going to have to do a little bit more and have to put up the ball a bit more than usual.
Mm-hmm.
It is a 46.5 total, like I said before, so it's a little on the higher side. And Atlanta is favored by 7, so Jacksonville's, again, going to have to put up the ball a lot and throw a lot to kind of keep up.
Yeah, plus it seems like their running back is just kind of out. Like, he just kind of doesn't care anymore. He's just kind of hanging out. Fournette's really got nothing to play for right now. And I think that's pretty obvious in the games right now.
Yeah, I mean, Chark's definitely kind of taken the number 1 role, like, by a pretty big margin.
For both quarterbacks as well. Like, I mean, at first it looked like it was Minshew's main target, but then when Foles came back in, he did the same thing. So yeah, he's definitely becoming their go-to guy.
Yeah, the rest of the receivers haven't really stepped up or really done too much impressive work, I guess.
Yeah. Well, one that I was looking at, which is going to go with my Tannehill, is A.J. Brown. He's a little bit pricey, but the numbers he's been able to put up lately have been crazy. 3 out of the past 4 games, he's been able to hit the bonus, the 100-yard plus bonus. New Orleans, again, is probably going to have a strong lead, and they're going to have to air out the ball. Past 2 weeks alone, he's gotten 36.6 and 28.4 points. So I definitely think he's a viable option. Also, they're playing at home in Tennessee.
Yeah, he's probably going to end up being high owned, which is why I didn't really bother taking notes on him, but I agree with it completely.
Yeah, I think the game script is just kind of perfect for him.
Right. Well, I'm going to bring back a repeat of last week with some Terry McLaurin.
I had him in my notes as well.
Yeah, I mean, he had a great game against Philly. He didn't get a ton of catches, but he did a lot with the 5 catches he did have.
Yeah.
His price didn't really change too much. He's still sitting at $6,200, which is very affordable. He's going against a New York Giants team that's 30th against the pass in the DVOA rankings, allowing 261 passing yards per game.
Mm-hmm.
And they're actually ranked last against wide receiver ones, and they're actually a top 10 run defense. So McLaurin by far has like one of the best matchups for anybody on Washington right now.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely like that. Like you said, he barely even changed in price, which is kind of crazy. I mean, he's been pretty good staple for a while.
Yeah.
So I definitely agree on that one 100%.
Yeah, it's a little on the lower side at 42 points. Washington's favored by 2. And Also, to kind of add to it, they did just ship Janoris Jenkins out of town, so that secondary is only going to be that much worse going against Washington.
Yeah. Real quick before we move on from wide receivers, who are, just out of curiosity, who are you leaning on in Cincinnati? I know they've got a bunch of cheap options as receivers right now for wide receiver 1 and wide receiver 2. Who are you leaning towards the most?
Honestly, I'm probably going to end up, it'll probably mostly be Boyd just because he is the safest option. Ross has come back recently. He'll still be a pretty good price point.
Yeah, Ross is a really good price point. There's no doubt about that, but he's definitely the riskier of the two. But, I mean, if he's anything like he was, week 1 and week 2 of the season before the injury, I mean, he was blowing everything up with 38 points and 24 points, sitting at, 3,900, 4,600. I'm sure he made somebody a lot of money.
Yeah, he hasn't really looked too impressive since he got back from injury, but this could possibly be the breakout game for him. And also, to be fair, I mean, the matchups they've had the past few weeks have been pretty rough ones.
Yeah, gotcha. Well, let's move on to our tight ends. Right away, I mean, I feel like this is a pretty obvious pick, but it's going to be like the biggest staple probably out of any of the tight ends is Zach Ertz. I mean, that floor is ridiculous. All the receivers on the Eagles are banged up and injured. I mean, you guys barely have anybody on the field right now. So Ertz is going to be definitely like a target that's going to get a lot of use, and he's just going to soak up those targets. And then Dallas is 30th against tight ends. So, I mean, I just feel like the game script is kind of perfect for him right now.
I mean, he's pricey, but he is a pretty obvious pick.
Yeah.
I think to kind of add to that point, you can almost argue that Dallas Goedert would be in the conversation as well.
Yeah, I thought about that as well. When I was trying to decide which one, which I know that was a pretty obvious pick, but at the same time, like, yeah, I definitely agree. I mean, Goddard got he's had 6+ targets for the past 5 weeks. He just needs to get like kind of a touchdown to make it worth it.
Right. Yeah, I think both of them are definitely in play.
Yeah, just because there's not many people out there right now for Philly.
Right, yeah. One I want to talk about, which I'm kind of surprised at his price point, is some Austin Hooper going against Jacksonville. Jacksonville's ranked 16th against tight ends on DraftKings, but it's a little bit of a deceptive ranking just because they've had a handful of games against elite fantasy tight ends, but not a ton. I'd say over half the games they've played this season have been kind of against mediocre or irrelevant fantasy tight ends. So on the DVOA rankings, they're actually ranked 31st. So
plus,
I think
Atlanta's been heating up as well out of nowhere and for no reason. They've been playing really well the past few weeks.
So he's sitting at a great price point. He's kind of had ugly games ever since he got back into the lineup after his injury. But to kind of add to all that, Jones isn't quite 100%, and Ridley got put on IR recently, so it's definitely going to be a game where Hooper's going to have to do a lot more.
Yeah, I can see that. Plus, also, they're going to be playing at home, which always helps out a little bit at least.
Right.
Yeah. All right, so let's move on to our defenses.
So I think the defense I like the most this week is going to be one of the more expensive ones, but I do really like Denver, and I think they're going to be worth their price point.
You're killing me. That was mine.
So it is a home matchup, which, people playing a Mile High is never an easy thing. And they're borderline top 10. They're actually ranked 12th overall. I think if their offense gave them a little bit more help, they probably have a higher ranking. Yeah. But you look at what's his face, Blow or Blah as you call him. He's averaging 40+ attempts ever since he took over for Stafford, and he's posted a 3 touchdown to 5 interception ratio over that span.
Oh God, poor Detroit.
And they have no run game to help him out. Sitting at 73 rush yards per game over the last 3. And I think it's the lowest total of the week, or the second lowest at 38.5. And it's got Denver favored by 7. So it's definitely going to be a game where Blow's going to have to do a lot of throwing, and there's probably going to be a lot of interceptions, and there's going to be a lot of opportunities for defensive touchdowns.
Yeah, and I think, you already touched on it earlier, but playing in Colorado, that's just another monster, because the fact that, it's like the lower, or the higher in the air, so it's harder for them to breathe, and it's a tougher game. Plus, people that are on Denver are used to it, whereas, the opposing teams, it's really difficult for them. And, not only are you going up against a tough defense, you're also going into an environment which is very difficult for them. So I 100% agree on that.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, well, you stole my main defense. The only other one off the top of my head that I would lean on, and again, they're pricey as well, is my Steelers. Because our defense has been killing it. We've been pretty much a staple of double-digit, close to 20 points per week on defense. They've been playing great. I'm a little bit worried because Darnold has been actually playing pretty decent lately, so that's a little bit of a worry, but we've been able to get turnovers just about every single week, no matter what, whether it be interceptions or fumbles, whatever. They have been just playing lights out week after week. The only reason that the Steelers even have a shot at making the playoffs. So I think they're always kind of a staple pick right now. They've had, maybe 2 bad weeks since we got Minka Fitzpatrick.
Pod just keeps throwing interceptions. The defense will be on the field more.
Yeah, that was a difficult game to watch. But I guess at some point in time, he's got to come back down to reality, which is what he did. But they were playing one of the toughest defenses as well in the league, so it was just like a defensive matchup with very few points.
Yeah, it's tied for the lowest total of the week at 30.
Yeah. All right. So let's move on to our sneaky pick of the week. Do you want to start us off on it?
I got a couple, so you go ahead and do yours. I'm gonna just kind of think about mine for a second.
Okay. I think the reason I'm choosing this guy is because of the fact that the price point got so reasonable, which has not been the case for a while. Choosing some Keenan Allen, I definitely think that they're going to air it out. They're playing at home. He's sitting at 6,300, which I think is the lowest. Oh, it's tied with the lowest he's been all season. I know he's not like a super sneaky pick because he is, wide receiver 1, but just for the fact that he's sitting so cheap right now, and I don't think they really have much to play for, but Phillip Rivers is still going to pass it. He's still going to give them the ball. The Raiders are 25th against receivers, so it's going to be a good spot for him. And he has a very solid floor with a huge ceiling, depending on, look at week 1 and week 3. He was sitting there getting 30 points, 47 points. He's got a high ceiling, and he's been pretty stable in getting double digits minimum.
Yeah, he's definitely still the most targeted receiver for the Chargers, and I think he's easily the most trusted option. Yeah,
I was surprised the drop in his how much he costs that definitely caught me off guard, but that's what we're trying to take advantage of. So
yeah, it's a good matchup for him. So So I'm going to I know we've kind of beaten this matchup to death, but I'm going to go with some Myles Gaskin, my running back going. He's sitting at 3,800, and Cincinnati is 27th against the rush in the DVOA rankings, and they are actually last in the league in terms of rush yards allowed per game. with 158, which is 18 more yards than the next one, the next closest, I believe. Let me double check that.
That is definitely a bargain bin right there. I didn't even think about him.
Yeah. Yes. I think some people are going to be on Patrick Laird because he is kind of the number one back in the backfield right now. But if you look, Gaskin's actually getting more and more work, and they're getting closer and closer to a 50-50 timeshare. Week 15 against the Giants, he actually got 11 touches, and Laird got 14. So we're seeing those numbers kind of go more in Gaskin's favor, and he did end up doing more with the fewer touches, averaging 4.8 yards a carry versus Laird's 3.8. So I feel like Miami's definitely going to give him a lot more work in a very, very soft matchup.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah, I definitely did not even think about him, but I think that's definitely a quality pick.
Yeah.
All right. Well, now we are on to the last segment. Let's go into our gut check.
Ooh, gut check!
And I guess I'll go ahead and start us off right here. Right away, I'm going to go with some Tannehill. I mean, that's just, that's where I'm leaning. I really like that matchup, and I think, like we talked about, it's going to be a lot of airing it out. Right away, pair him up with some A.J. Brown. And let's see here. Let's go into the running backs. I'm going to look at that Miles Sanders on there. Ooh, I got to get some like cheaper picks here now. Spending all my money real quick.
Yeah.
Let's see. This is tough. Let me go with my Joe Mixon, even though it is pricey. Now I got to really focus on getting those cheaper options in here. Let's see. I'm going to throw this one in there just because we kind of touched on it for a little bit. Let's throw in some John Ross, a little bit of a punt play, but it definitely saves up on the money right there. I'm going to go with my tight end. Let's see. Let's go with, again, what we talked about. Let's go with some Dallas Goedert, just because they're missing targets right now, and definitely think he's going to be able to soak some of those up. Defense-wise, I 100% agree. I'm going to go with some Broncos. So that saves us a little bit of money. We're sitting at $5,800 right now. And let's see who we can plug in here. One that we didn't really touch on much, but I do like some Darius Slayton. Like, once he was paired up with Eli Manning and he was out there, he was able to catch some of those long balls. So I'm hoping that he'll be able to do something there. And for flex position, we're sitting at 6,100. And I still have a tough time. Like, I see Devontae Freeman up there, and I'm like, I get you, but I just don't know. Let's see. Trying to find a fit. No, I have to make that decision. I got to go with Scotty's picks. Give me that Devontae Freeman, as much as I'm kind of nervous about it.
All right.
There we go. Now your turn.
Okay, so first up for me, I'm going to go ahead and do some Breeze. It's kind of hard not to pair him with Michael Thomas. I don't really see anybody else really being a good play there.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, that does kind of put us in a hole to start off.
Yeah.
So running backs, I do kind of have to go with some riskier plays. So I'm going to go ahead and take a chance on Myles Gaskin. And then the next running back, let's go ahead and do Freeman.
Yeah, you had to convince me. I hope you're right.
So receiver-wise, I kind of have to save some money, and I'm gonna go with some cheap Denver receivers. I didn't really get a chance to talk about them, but some Deshaun Hamilton. He's kind of he got 9 targets last week versus he got 9 targets last week versus Sutton's 10. So he's kind of like the wide receiver 2 for Denver right now.
Just needs better hands. He only caught 2 of those 9.
Yeah, but this will definitely be a much better matchup for him. And yeah, Detroit just kind of sucks against anything, really.
Yeah.
So that'll save us a good chunk of money. For my last receiver, I'm thinking I'll pay up for some McLaurin, and I'll try to save some money on tight end.
Gotcha.
And I'm going to go with another pick that I didn't quite get a chance to talk about, with some Caden Smith for the Giants. So Ingram is out, Ellison is out, and Smith kind of ended up being the tight end 1 for them. Where is he? There he is. And Washington's actually ranked 30th against tight ends in the DVOA rankings.
Nice.
But he's had 22 targets over the last 4 games. I think he has 1 touchdown over that span.
Yeah.
So, I mean, a little bit of a risk, but you do save a good chunk of money.
Yeah, you save a lot of money on that.
So, gonna go ahead and plug in.
I know you're there, so that way you have.
Yeah.
I don't know how much money you're sitting at.
I know you're not gonna like this, but I'm gonna do the Jets defense.
Oh no, Hodges, trust the duck.
Not after 4 interceptions.
I don't think Jets defense is as good as the Bills defense. Just saying.
I mean, they're good against the run, so they're going to force Hodges to have to do a lot.
Yeah. Wow, you're sitting at a lot of money here. You got $8,400 left over.
Yeah, so I'm thinking I do want to go ahead and plug in A.J. Brown, and I might kind of dial back on one of the other picks. I'll probably take out Caden Smith, actually.
Yeah.
And then plug Hooper in instead.
Oh, yeah.
No, I already got an Atlanta receiver.
Ooh, yeah. Well, no, you don't have a receiver. You have Devontae.
The running back.
Running back, yeah. I think it's possible that, Devontae Freeman does well and Hooper still gets his targets.
Let me do some Hollister, kind of take advantage of that last rated Arizona tight end defense.
True. And with Russell Wilson throwing to him, I mean, you can't go wrong with that. He'll make anybody a star.
Exactly. So I think that's going to do it for us, right?
Yep.
All right, so that's going to conclude the Week 16 edition of the BSDFS Fantasy Football Podcast. We hope you can take these picks, go out there, win you some money on some DraftKings, and that's going to be it for us. Peace.
Well, let's toot your horn just a little bit, real quick, and talk about your lineup that you set last week that got 210 DraftKings points. So, guys, if you're listening right now, if you had listened last week and put our lineup in there, we were the top 1% on a 396,000 entry contest. So, you need to be listening. Me and Scotty, we got the picks.
Let me see if I can pull it up real quick. I didn't even think to have it ready. There it is. But yeah, Kenyon Drake went off for 42 points, only 4.3% owned. McLaurin went off for 27 at 6.8% owned. So we had some pretty good picks last week.
Yeah, and we're gonna do it again this week.
Yeah, let's hope we can I can't talk. We can continue the momentum. There we go.
for sure. Let's take it
All
into the postseason.
All right. So that's going to do it for us. Peace.